Hang in there. Don't give up. Don't give up on us now. We know you've gone through a lot, but there's so much more to give. Don't give up on us. Just hang in there. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Nothing but oxygen now. Stop breathing.
Artificial respiration?
Yes.
Adrenaline, sister.
Intravenous Carbamide, nurse.
No. No, it can't be. No, say it's not true. I can't believe you're gone. It was way too soon. I'm gonna miss you guys. Rest easy. Yes, life and all of its changes. I had a big change when I was 17 years old. We moved to a new town, and with that came going to a new high school. Now here I am in a new town. I'm far away from my old friend group. I was essentially on my own, and had to join a new school. 17 years old. I think that's what, grade 10, grade 11, somewhere in there. And I had to pick up my classes, what I want to study. But the most difficult part was trying to fit in socially. Now back then, there was a big, diverse kind of student body. Kids were into all sorts of different types of things. Not like today. I mean, I drop my kids off at school now, and all the kids all look the same. You have the odd emo kid or a goth kid, but generally speaking, the kids all look the same. They're all branded with clothing brands or their favorite sports team. Everyone kind of looks similar. But the school I went to had quite a few different groups of people. Kind of the top of the pecking order were the jocks. They were the varsity heroes. They're the ones putting the trophies in the cabinet outside the office. You had kind of the new wave kids, where the girls all tried to look like Boy George. Some of the boys tried to look like Boy George. There was the punk movement, the punk kids. Then you had the subgroups of skinheads and mods. I mean, each of those had a few members of their divisions, but generally speaking, the punks were the punks, and they pretty much all hung out together. Another group in school was the funkers. Now, that was kind of the hip-hop crew. The funkers was a dumb name. I don't know who came up with that or why we called them that. But they were the guys that were into Eric B. and Rakim, BDP, Run DMC. A lot of the early hip-hop stuff. Public Enemy weren't really quite part of it yet. They were kind of sharpening their talons, getting ready to take on the world. Then you had just like the normal kids. They had no need to conform. They were just doing their own thing, going to class, being cool about it all. I'd have to say they were probably the coolest of all the kids because they had no need to try and express themselves beyond who they really were. Hats off to the normal kids. I might add that we did have a famous funker in our smoking area. Someone by the name of Snow. Snow. Informer, lick your bum bum down, informer. Lick your bum bum down. Yeah, he was in the smoking area, and that's where I heard a lot of early hip hop from. Was him and his buddies, and weird. Then there was the rockers, the heavy metal rock crew, which I kind of aligned with pretty early. That's kind of what I was. I mean, here I am showing up at high school with my Judas Priest patch on my back, and I met up a lot of these kids because I always liked working with my hands, so I always did trade stuff. I liked metal shop, I liked wood shop, I liked, auto shop, that type of thing. And a lot of these guys took those courses. So I fell in with them. But the thing that really pulled everyone together, it was the big mixer in the school, was this little area off the side of the cafeteria. And this area was something that is unheard of today due to health reasons and, the onward movement of society. But this was the smoking area. Now, the smoking area was the big melting pot. After lunch, you go out there, have a cigarette, and between classes, or if you have a spare period, or kids are waiting for the buses after school, the smoking area was the place to go. And that's where you found stuff out. That's where you found out where the house party was on Friday. That's where you got a chance to maybe try and talk up a girl that you liked that wasn't in any of your classes. It was really the social element of school. I was out there one afternoon, just after my lunch, having a cigarette, and this guy walks up to me. He's wearing a leather jacket with a denim vest pulled over top, and he bums a cigarette from me. So I give him a cigarette, and he's obviously a rock guy, but someone that wasn't in any of my classes, someone I'd never spoken with before. And we get to talking about metal, about rock and roll. I mean, obviously, I was a Judas Priest fan because of the patch. And, we talked about Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and that type of thing. But then he asked me about if I knew a band called Metallica. And of course I said no, I'd never heard of Metallica. And I was thinking to myself, what kind of name is that, Metallica? Encyclopedia Metallica. It's kind of pompous sounding, but kind of cool. But of course I said no. I mean, you say yes and you're caught out immediately in the conversation. So he tells me about this band. I'm like, okay, whatever. It sounds great. There's lots of bands out there. Whatever. So the next day, though, he shows up to school with his beat-up old ghetto blaster and a cassette tape. And the cassette tape obviously had some wear on it. And in the smoking area, we kind of went around the corner a little bit, and he popped this tape in. And the sound quality was horrible, but I could kind of get a gist of what was going on. And it was pretty nuts stuff I was hearing. I was like, wow, is this ever fast? Is this ever heavy? I really liked it. And, a couple of songs played, and, it was about 5-10 minutes ago. We had to get back to class. So I said to him, like, well, where do I buy this Metallica? He's like, well, you have to go to a shop. There's a certain place downtown in Toronto, and that's where we go to get our stuff. I thought, well, okay, I go downtown all the time. Where is it? He's like, well, listen, we're going down this Saturday. Do you want to tag along? We'll take you there. I said, okay, fine. So Saturday rolls along, and we get to the commuter train station and take the train downtown. Now, I figured we're going to be going to, Sam the Record Man, A&A's, Records on Wheels, places that I knew about, and, but I've never seen the Metallica there. So let's see what happens. And as we're walking along the streets, we're going up the main street and Yonge Street in Toronto, and suddenly we hang a right on Queen Street. I'm like, well, there's nothing down there. That's all like rubbies and drunks. It's kind of like the bad part of town. And but no, this is apparently the direction we're supposed to be going. So we go down that street, and about 3 or 4 blocks later, we reach the store, and it is the Record Peddler.
Years of steady touring on rock's poverty trail and his swing back towards basic rock tastes have earned Motorhead a devoted following, such as these fans who met the group at Toronto's Record Peddler.
No, I'd never been in the Record Peddler. I've never even heard of it. I knew nothing about this place, and it just didn't seem like a record shop. It was kind of off the side of City TV. They're the ones that did much music. They shared the building with City TV, and it was kind of very unassuming. I never thought, this could be anything. I think I probably drove by there a million times with my father, on our trips downtown. Now we go inside, and the 2 guys I was with, they're like level 3 metalheads. They went off to pick up their level 3/level 4 stuff. I was level 1. I was the Judas Priest kid. I didn't know what I was doing. So I went in and started looking at the walls, and I saw the Metallica. And this is what I picked up. And this is still my very same copy. This is the one I pulled off the wall that day, trying to avoid the gleam. Metallica's Kill 'Em All, their first album. It was the grail I was going for that day. But of course I was looking around the shelves, and I know these guys had mentioned this other band, this band called Venom. And this is my Venom. This is the one. This is the one from the wall. I heard that was supposed to be a good one, so I pulled that down as well. I kind of went over by my buddies and said, should I buy this Venom? They're like, oh yeah, that's one you need for sure. So I took my stuff up to the cash, and the guy that was ringing me through, he's sold the stuff a million times every day, so, there's no comment from him. But I found out later that he also runs a radio show, and it was, I think, Fridays or Saturdays or Sundays. I can't remember now. It was on CKLN Radio, the college radio station in Toronto. And this gentleman had a show called Arg Rock, which I soon tuned into every weekend, because he'd play all sorts of interesting stuff. And that's where these guys were getting their level 3, level 4 information from. So now I kind of had more of a direct source. I didn't need to rely on these guys to guide me along anymore. All right, so we went home. I got my stuff out of the bags and started listening to Metallica. You know, I kind of heard a bit of it before, but now I was hearing it on a half-decent stereo, and I was just amazed. You know, I was like, wow, these guys are friggin' hot. They are heavy, they are fast. The lyrics were kind of more the same, but, you know, song titles like Hit the Lights, The Four Horsemen, Motor Breath, Metal Militia, Whiplash, you know, really cool sounding stuff, you know, and I just loved it. So that record played through, loved it immensely. Then I put on the Venom. Now, the Venom I had not heard anything of. I was told to buy it. You know, this is one of the crucial ones. And I kind of knew it was crucial because the picture of Metallica on the back, let's see if I can find that again. Kirk Hammett, the guitar player for Metallica. If you can see it, oh, it's kind of hard to see. I'm going to try and line him up there. He has a Venom button on his jacket. So I knew, okay, well, this is kind of legit. There's something to this rumor. So I put Venom on, and they weren't as polished. It was definitely a little rougher around the edges. They certainly didn't have the level of musicianship that Metallica had, but they had this bombastic approach to things, a lot like Motorhead. They were a three-piece like Motorhead, and the music was very kind of Satan-driven, which, I mean, I saw through it immediately. I mean, I'm an agnostic now, I guess, but at the time I was pretty much an atheist. So if you don't believe in God or Jesus, how can you believe in the devil? You know, it was just something that I appreciated on its fantasy level. It was fun lyrics. On a side note, a future purchase of mine was the first Venom album, and that was even dirtier and rawer sounding. A really, really nasty sound record. Like, after listening to both those albums, like, are these guys even serious? Like, is this for real? Are they like just making a joke out of this whole thing? But I loved it. You know, it was really fun. Of course, listening to Arg Rock now is kind of getting hip to a few things. Another one that I picked up from the DJ was a hint on this other record from an American band, Slayer. Again, my original copy. Ridiculous album cover, and but still an amazing record. I was kind of comparing them to more of like a Judas Priest style. They weren't quite as over the top as Metallica were. They're a little more one step back, and but still I loved it. I mean, it was really fun stuff. So as I went on listening to this stuff actually became more and more popular. It was gaining a bit of traction, and some of these bands started touring. So I think one of the first shows I ever saw of this ilk, of this group of extreme metal, was Metallica.
Have any of you people here in Toronto heard of stage diving? That's when the really freaks come up onto the stage and do a little flipping and then flip back into the crowd before they get attacked. It may not be allowed here, but who gives a...
They were opening for Wasp. Metallica was on the Ride the Lightning tour at this point. Wasp had them opening. I guess the whole tour was like that. And after Metallica finished, there was an exodus of people. No pun intended. Exodus is also a band. There was an exodus of people, and I'd say about half the crowd left. And I'm sure Wasp were on stage playing to a now half-filled concert hall and thinking, you know, they saw the writing on the wall. They could see that this new movement was getting a lot of traction. Whether or not they consciously decided to try and change their approach, they seemed to kind of, you know, stay their path and do what they did. But there was definitely something new happening, and a lot of the older bands did try and shift to it. I mean, you had kind of two directions to go. You could either go the hair metal way, or you could go a little more extreme. I guess a lot of them banked on the fact that money is money, and like this extreme thing might be a flash in the pan. Let's not worry too much about it. I think the next show I went to was an unbelievably great show. It was Slayer.
They got to get crazy. The heat's so intense, it's getting my strings out of tune. How powerful is your magic? You're sounding kind of weak to me. Come on, in Toronto, You don't have whips in Toronto, do you?
And they were playing at Larry's Hideaway, this tiny little hole in the wall, again on the east side of town. Larry's isn't there anymore. It was just a flea bag of prostitution, and but it was the club where all the punk bands played. It was the club where all kind of the weird acts played. And Slayer were booked in there. So, of course, I had to go. Went down there that day. They had just put out the Haunting the Chapel EP. I no longer have it. It was stolen from a house party that I had once, and I'm pretty upset about that because I had it autographed. Now, when we got to Larry's, we got there a little early. The band they let us in for whatever reason. I mean, usually they don't let you in until, an hour before the show or whatever, but they let us in. And there was Slayer sitting in the corner eating Chinese food. So I walked over to them with my copy of Haunting the Chapel, hoping to have it autographed. So I asked them if they would sign it for me. And they're all like, they stopped eating. One of them dropped their fork. And it was silence. I'm like, what the hell am I about to get my ass kicked here? Jeff Hanneman, the guitar player, said, "There it is. Oh my God." And so I handed it over. I think Kerry King was the first to take it from me. And they're looking at it, and he's looking at the spine. They're pulling the record out, looking at it from all angles, giving it the once over, giving it the twice, the 3 times over. I think Jeff Hanneman grabbed it next, and I found out that this was the very first physical copy that they'd seen. That's the first one they laid their hands on. So they're, Dave Lombardo's taking it. He's looking at it upside down, holding it up to the light, making sure, checking all the liner notes, making sure everything was correct. By the time I got to Tom Araya, the singer bass player, he was kind of laughing and saying, "You're not getting this back." And I thought, well, there it goes. I only paid like $10 for it. No big deal. He's like, "I'm just kidding." Then he signed it for me and gave it back to me. So that was my prized possession for the longest time. Like I said, I had a house party 10 years later, and, putting stuff away the next day, I noticed, well, someone walked off with it. And I hope you're watching, and I hope you enjoy owning that record. It meant a lot to me. You don't mean too much to me anymore. Another big show that came through town was Venom. And they had Slayer, I think, with them. They're opening again. So Slayer, the second time saw them, amazing, of course, fantastic. They always pounded it out, did a great set. I'm not sure if they're up to Hell Awaits yet, or where they were in their vinyl path. But Venom was a bit of a weird show. It was kind of 2/3 of Venom. 2 of the guys were not Venom members, 2 guitar players who we didn't recognize at all. None of us really knew what was going on because there was no internet back then. And you got very fleeting bits of information here and there. I found out apparently the Mantis, Venom's guitarist, couldn't make it over for visa reasons or for health reasons. I'm not even sure. So he was replaced by these 2 other guys. So it was good. It was a good show, but it was great to see them do it. It was great to hear that stuff blasting out of the PA. It would have been nice if Mantis was there. But another crucial show, a really big one. Man, the place was packed for that one too. Another sold out gig. Another big one was Celtic Frost. From Switzerland, kind of a black metal band as well. A little more extreme than Venom were. I mean, Venom had a little more of a tongue-in-cheek approach to things. Tom Warrior from Celtic Frost kind of took things a little more seriously, I think. And they did a meet and greet, and they did a record signing. Sorry, a bit of an edit there. I had to get up and get my copy off the wall. Yes, I have it framed. That's how dorky I am. But Celtic Frost had their first album out, Morbid Tales. It was almost an album. It was kind of short, too. But then they put out an EP called Emperor's Return. And when I went to this meet and greet signing, that's what I brought along with me. And here it is. This is my copy. As you can see, signed by Tom Warrior. This is 1986 at this point. Martin Ain, rest his soul. He's not with us anymore. Died of a heart attack a few years ago. But they were really nice guys. I think Tom was a little high, I don't know. He was just kind of giggly and didn't say much. I decided to speak German because they do speak German. And Martin Ain was the talkative one. He was telling me about the previous show. I think it was in Quebec City the night before. and how they'd had all their stage clothes stolen. I mean, Tom was wearing kind of studs and leather at the time, but Martin Ain kind of had the pirate shirt. He kind of had this semi kind of goth look going, and I guess someone stole their trunk of clothes. He was saying he desperately wanted this autograph session to end because he had to talk with his tour manager, who was trying to get in contact with the record label about getting some money so they could buy some clothes for the show. I guess it worked out because they looked like Celtic Frost when they played. You know, they managed to get to some goth pirate shop and some S&M place and grab what they needed. Another big show was I guess you could call it a local show. It was also at the concert hall. The concert hall was kind of the epicenter of, you know, this type of touring band.
This is the concert hall, man! I said, do you feel like pounding some metal tonight? What's more like it? Violence and force!
But there was a band from Ottawa called Exciter. Now I have their first one here. This is, again, my very first copy. And it is signed. I think they were signing records that same day. I'm not sure when this was signed. It was at the Record Peddler. But they were playing a show at the concert hall. Now the cool thing was that they had a local band, a punk band called Direct Action. They were opening for them. Now, I mean, I had some punk in my collection, but nothing serious. I mean, I had the Clash, you know, I had the Sex Pistols, some kind of rudimentary stuff. But here this was this punk band, and, you know, they didn't have long hair like the rest of us. You know, they were kind of weird looking, but I knew these guys from high school, you know, these same type of punk dudes. And they looked just like us. I mean, that's the thing with Metallica. That's the thing with Slayer. You know, with the exception of Celtic Frost and Venom, it seems like the European bands were a little more into getting dressed up. The North American bands, Metallica and Slayer, even Exodus, they kind of just looked like us. And Direct Action just looked like a bunch of punks, a bunch of punk kid off the street, a bunch of punk kids from the smoking area. But they're amazing. Like, again, I keep referring to Motorhead, but that's kind of the way they were. As I kind of got into punk later on, I found out they must have been big fans of Discharge, who were also a big influence on Metallica and the new metal scene. But the great thing about it was, and something I realized years later, was that punk and metal were really mixing together. I mean, there were a lot of shows happening at Larry's with, you know, a punk band on one side and a metal band on the other, and they'd come together and put on shows. You know, you read stories or hear stories about shows in New York where the punks were fighting with the metalheads, and stories from LA where, you know, the metalheads were driven out of the bar because the punks wouldn't accept them. But it seems in Toronto that there was always that level of acceptance there, that the two scenes kind of grew together. And there was never really any violence, nothing like that at all. I don't know if it was part of the fact that we had the new music going. Then we had the ARG Rock radio station. Like, I mean, the host of the show would play punk as well as metal. So we kind of grew together. I mean, there was never that level of animosity there. I know a lot of the metal people became punks. That's what I was. I mean, 6 months later, I kind of leaned more into the punk thing, which will be coming up in the next episode. But yeah, it was great. It was fantastic to see the fact that, you know, we could all just do this together and have a good time. And around this time, I joined my first band. I was the singer of a metal band, and man, what a mistake that was on their part. I mean, I knew I sucked. There was no question about it, but I tried. We were kind of doing stuff by Tank. We were doing stuff by Savage. We were doing stuff by Moore. We had a couple of original songs, but it was just terrible. I was nervous as hell about it. I have no range. I mean, if there's one thing you need in metal, other than if you're going to do the growly thing, but you need a bit of range. You need the ability to actually project and sound like you know what you're doing. I had no idea what I was doing. So that was very short-lived. But I hung out with another band. They went to a different high school, but through friends we kind of hooked up with each other. And they were kind of doing the Celtic Frost, the extreme sound. An amazing band called Mal Havoc. He's still going to this day. Jimmy, he's still got the band going. Releasing some of the old stuff again, which is great. You know, that's the stuff that I was kind of, I wouldn't say part of, but I was part of their crowd when they were developing that whole thing. They were a fantastic band, but that gave me the taste for being in a band. I'd already started playing a bit of guitar at this point. So that's kind of where my musical career started, was being a metal singer. And I know a few of you went to our jam sessions, and I could see you guys just sitting there shaking your heads going, what's this guy doing? And I mean, I was right there with you. I had no idea what I was doing. I tried. My heart was there. But man, it was embarrassing. It was. But I know, I'm not going to hold anything back from you people. So there it is. I wish I had some tapes of it. I would actually play it for you if I had a tape of it. It was just horrific, strained vocals. But anyway, that gave me the taste for being in bands. And over the course of the next 6 months or so to a year, I shifted genres again. I mean, I always loved metal. I still listen to Judas Priest. I still listen to Deep Purple. I still listen to Metallica. But this whole cross-pollination with the punk scene brought me into that realm. And that's where part 4 is going to go. So, a little involvement of actual noise from me. I'll play some little clips maybe of bands I was in. We have a little bit of video as well, I think. But some of the key players, some of the key bands, that's going to be the next segment of this meandering journey of my life and mynoise. So listen, I really appreciate you guys tuning in again. Don't forget to, let's say, like, and don't forget to, let's go over here, subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification. Don't hit the notification bell. Everyone says hit the notification bell, but I've never done it, and I always end up seeing the person's next video. If you want to hit the notification bell, go ahead. But I'll see you again soon. And once again, thanks for checking it out. On a side note, when I was editing this video, I noticed there's a lot of sibilance on the audio. I'm going to whisper it now as to not perpetuate the problem, but I promise I'm going to get a good microphone, and that'll be the end of that. More noise from mynoise. Noise, noise, noise. Pretty girls, pretty boys, did you ever hear your mother say, noise and noise? Bonus points if you know who that is. Take care.
Alright, I gotta get back to editing. But of course, I gotta do shopping. Always gotta go get something. And I gotta always throw out garbage. It's always freaking garbage day. Take out the garbage. Take out the garbage. Wait a minute. What the hell? Really? He said he was just coming over to borrow some tools. I want my keys back.